Happy New Year, Richard.
Happy New Year, John.
Hey, you are here for Bronze and Modern Gods with John and Richard. If you're not following us on Facebook and Instagram, why not do so at Bronze and Modern Gods? And, subscribe, like, help us out. We're so close to 5,000 subscribers.
I know. Please subscribe.
I was kind of hoping, we would hit it before the end of the year, but it was not to be. But close enough. We appreciate every single one of you. And today we're going to be talking about the best Bronze Age comics to collect. And I think, Richard, the word that is important in that title is collect, which means a couple of things, right? Monetary value, also just plain good stuff to collect, to read, and have in your collection. So we'll be doing all that. But first, let's hear from our great sponsor, Wacom.
Hi, everybody. Richard from Bronze and Modern Gods. I want to talk to you about a new app that's available in the Google Store and the App Store. It's called Wacom. Wacom lets me scan UPC codes off of comics and automatically add them to my collection. Boom. Simple as that. Really intuitive way of being able to grow your collection. You can also mark books as being read and also see books you haven't read yet, so you know where you are in your reading habits. Wacom automatically will notify you as new books come out for what you have in your collection, so you can keep up to date with the current issues of your favorite stories. And I love this part. I can follow my friends and even see what John is collecting and reading. You're in total control. You can have it as simple as just scanning the books and leaving it at that, or if you want to add all kinds of metadata like the grade of the book or anything else you want to track, it can handle keeping track of all the information you want. So again, go to your favorite application store, the App Store or the Google Play Store, and download Wacom today. Thanks.
Wacom, Richard, kind of a killer app. I like the interface and everything.
I love it. Yeah, it's a great app. Great app.
All right, let's hit our hot book of the week. Richard, you picked it. You take it.
Yeah, this week's hot book is Warhammer Monthly #0, Black Library. This is a promotional comic that was given away in 1998. It is the
1998 teaser for 25-year-old. But go on.
I debated whether to save it or not, but I thought it was an important book to cover. It's the introduction of the Warhammer universe to comics. Anyone who knows Warhammer or Warhammer 40K knows it is a rich and detailed universe. It is a gaming system and a series of novels and pretty much anything else they can monetize, miniatures, etc. Henry Cavill is a big Warhammer 40K player. He plays the miniatures. He has a painted armor. There's videos of him talking about his collection, and he's been championing the franchise to be taken by some studio and make movie and television properties out of it. Well, it was announced that Amazon has secured the rights to Warhammer and has engaged Cavill for a starring role and potentially executive producer position. So that's really, really exciting. Anybody who's into 40K is probably chomping at the bit, wondering why it's taken so long to get here. I'm a big 40K player. I have a Tyranid army that was undefeated back when I was playing regularly. So it's a big thing. This particular book is, again, it's the first comic related to the Warhammer 40K universe. There's only one book on the GPA. It's an 8.5, and it sold this month for $154. Strangely enough, if you look at the census for CGC, there is one book on the census. It's the 8.5 that just sold this month. So it's not a highly collected book, or at least not highly graded. Let's put it that way. And I don't know if it's because of rarity or just no interest in it, or no understanding of its significance. But right now on eBay, if you look, there are a couple of copies out there for $300 to $400. Pass those by. This is not a good idea to buy on the hype. If you want this one, wait. The dust will settle and the price will stabilize something less than what it is now. If you've got a copy of this book, I would probably send it in to get graded regardless of the condition, given the low census count. And it's time to sell.
Do you have one?
I know I don't. I wish I do, but I do not.
It's interesting that Warhammer has taken so long to be optioned like this. Same thing with Magic the Gathering. Yeah, maybe
Mhm.
we missed something, or has it just never been utilized? Well, how long did it take Dungeons and Dragons to finally have a movie?
Oh yes, but hopefully they'll do better than Dungeons and
I
Dragons.
know.
Or you know, if Henry Cavill is executive producer and he is running the show, I think it will be done as well as he can make it done. I know there are external forces that will stand in the way sometimes of a vision, but I think someone, with him, who's an excellent actor, and if he's going to be in a starring role in it and actually directing and producing it, I'm really looking forward to seeing what comes out of this from Amazon.
It's another interesting thing that I noticed when I was back in Ohio a couple weeks ago. You guys have a lot of gaming places.
Oh yeah.
Like, yeah, which is really is that a weird thing that so many are in Northeast Ohio where you can go meet people and play Warhammer? I
I
just
thought that was normal.
we don't have them out here in Southern California. We have a few, but I mean, there's that one in Cleveland by the airport, and then there's that one in Lakewood. It's like every time you turn around, you run into a gaming place.
There are first party stores out there, run by the company itself that sell Warhammer miniatures and 40K miniatures, and they have magazines and books and paints and miniatures. It's the whole, it's a whole hobby in itself,
Crazy.
40K. And then there's third party comic book stores that have gaming tables like Reality Recess, which is called Recess right now.
Yeah.
Recess.net. Go there, great store. And they sell all kinds of other board games as well as having a number of big tables that you can play 40K on. So it's a big part of the hobby out here is playing miniature games.
Do you think it's the weather?
I can almost attest to the fact that it is
Yeah.
the weather. People
Yeah.
are prevented from going outside, so they gather together and play board games.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff for me fell to the wayside when I moved to Southern California. It was like I'm going outside and having fun, but I kind of miss it. Inclement weather forced me to be creative, and by that I mean, I you couldn't go anywhere, so I'm drawing in my sketchbook and I'm writing and I'm blogging and doing things. And now that I'm here, it's like woo, party fun time. So there's that. Hey, we're back to a main topic for an episode. It's been a long time since we've done a main topic and not just viewer mail, right?
Right.
So we talked about what we wanted to speak about. The name of this podcast is Bronze and Modern Gods. We haven't talked about the Bronze Age in a while. So we thought, hey, we're going to give you guys our picks for the best Bronze Age comics to collect. Now, before you all get started, this is not here's what to invest in our top 10 picks. This is our
Personal.
podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. We know you guys. We know our audience, and you guys are collectors, you're investors, but you're also readers and you love the hobby. So let's define some terms here. When we're defining the Bronze Age, we're talking about from 1970, starting with what's traditionally known as the beginning of the Bronze Age, Green Lantern, Green Arrow 76, that first Neil Adams, Denny O'Neil issue. And we're going to end it around 1985 with the start of the Copper Age, which is, arguably Crisis on Infinite Earths for DC and Secret Wars for Marvel. It's the beginning of the Copper Age. So we'll just go back and forth. Richard, why don't you tell everybody your first pick for a Bronze Age comic to collect?
Okay, I picked 3 different books total. One for a Marvel book, a DC book, and then an independent. For my Marvel book, nothing beats Walt Simonson's run of Thor back in 1983. Thor number 337, the first appearance of Beta Ray Bill. This book has it all. I mean, it has a gorgeous cover. That white background with Beta Ray standing there with Mjolnir. It is an amazing cover. It is an amazing story that Walt does it all in this book. He does the art as well as does the story, and it revived Thor as a title because of the dynamicism of the storyline and the artwork. And I remember being riveted back when this came out. It was one of those storylines that I was the first I read out of the pack, out of my weekly pack that I got comics out. And This is a great book, great story. Collectability, I think, it's high up there. Again, Walt Simonson's run in general is highly collectible, and in value, it's sitting around $800 for a 9.8 right now, and I think that's undervalued. If Beta Ray Bill ever shows up in the MCU, is going to go crazy. But I don't care. I mean, it's one of my key books, one of the books that's an important part of my collection. I have a 9.8 signed by Walt, and it's going to be with me for forever.
I remember that book. I was a sophomore in high school. I don't know if I had my driver's license yet or if I was just under that age, but I know I had a moped, and that book came out, and it was hot, hot, hot. No one could find it. Everybody knew that you had to go search for it. So I hopped on my moped and I went to every Dairy Mart / Lawson's that was within moped distance, and I bought every copy I could find. Couldn't find a lot of them. It was crazy because Thor was kind of a dead, boring title at that point. And,
Right.
it's like Daredevil when Frank Miller took over, nothing to lose. So they just went nuts and just let Walt do his thing. And it was crazy. That cover, you could not pass that cover up. If you saw that cover on the stands, you had to buy that book. Here's my
Right.
60 cents. It's yours. My picks are a little different. You're picking specific issues. I
Uh-huh.
went more genre or title, which is fine. And you probably did not pick this because I grabbed it first.
You did. Yes, that's the only reason why I didn't.
I understand that. And we both would say Uncanny X-Men, undoubtedly the book of the Bronze Age to collect. Right from Giant Size X-Men #1 all the way through 1985, the beginning of the Paul Smith years, I think.
Uh-huh.
Or maybe it's beyond that. 85. I'm blanking now. You guys tell me in the comments. I know you're all screaming at your screens or your iPods right now. iPods. Did I just say
You said
iPods?
iPods. Yes, you did.
Oh, your iPhones. Or your other podcast
Your
device.
Zooms.
Yeah, here's your Microsoft Zunes. Uncanny X-Men, you couldn't beat it. I remember the very first issue of Uncanny X-Men I ever read, the new X-Men, which was 95. My dentist's son was a friend of mine, and I'm at my dentist's house with my parents, and they were having, their little coffee clatch or key party. I don't know what was going on downstairs. Um, and the son and I are exchanging comics, and he has this X-Men 95, and I remember it as a reprint title, and I'm like, wait, wow, Cyclops' new eye visor is really cool. And then I'm looking, and I'm like, wait, they killed an X-Man, Thunderbird, this new guy. I didn't even get a chance to know him, and he's dead.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find it on the stands. I could never find it on the newsstands until probably issue 122,
Oh, wow.
123.
I'll go back.
Yeah, that's when it started showing up in at the newsstand and the little convenience store I went to in Grafton, Ohio, where I was living. And my friend Eric Lenner, shout out to Eric Lenner, said, "Why aren't you reading X-Men?" And I'm like, "Well, I can't find it, and it's not that good." He's like, "Dude." And he was right. His two favorite books were Iron Man and X-Men.
Mm.
I think Iron Man fans are very strange. But yes.
Yeah, I agree. X-Men was pivotal to my comic book collection all through the 80s. I was a huge, and still am a huge fan of John Byrne and the work that he does. And Byrne and Claremont were just an unbeatable a team. And the books, again, just like Simonson's Thor, it was a book that I dropped everything when it came out and read it because I was waiting for that monthly fix of the book, and it's an amazing book. And I think most of our audience already knows, understands that. I mean, I'm sure X-Men is an important book to a lot of people, but I think to both of us, it's just a key book from the Bronze Age.
Everyone knows, but I think it has to be said. To acknowledge,
Oh,
yes, we know, X-Men is the Bronze Age book to get. And it's kind of like Apple stock, it's never going to really go down and crater. It's something good to have in your collection. You never know who's going to pop next. I mean, we're waiting for that Hellfire Club spin-off movie someday, maybe.
Who
You
knows?
just got
I always, yeah, I always buy X-Men in the 100s, 101 through 199. When I
Mhm.
see them, if they got that Marvel Comics banner across the top, I buy them almost always because, like you say, they're kind of blue chip. Eventually, if they're not now, they will have value to them, and you want to buy them when they're cheap.
I mean, the first appearance of friggin' Lockheed is a key now. So
Yeah,
that just tells you that anything can happen. All right, what's your second Bronze Age pick?
don't be dissing Lockheed.
Ah,
Um, My second pick is probably I want to I we're talking about runs, and I am also a big Alan Moore fan, and his run on Swamp Thing for DC was absolutely amazing. I mean, the man himself may be eccentric, but the work that he produces is groundbreaking. A Saga of the Swamp Thing, issue number 21, which was the anatomy lesson. It was where he makes his mark on the title, and it was an indelible mark. It was another series that Alan Moore did. Has done just throughout my comic book collecting so many important titles: Watchmen, Sin City, um, Miracle Man. The list is endless of books that are just important. V for Vendetta. Uh,
mhm.
they are they are titles that make you think and break certain conventions that comic books that always have, and it just makes them must reads. And this to me uh, represents the best of the Bronze Age for DC. That kind of book that makes you think about it when you're not actually reading it. And his run for Swamp Thing was that.
It changed comics. I mean, along with Frank Miller at that time, it got Rolling Stone articles written about it. It was the mainstreaming of comics. A little more in the Bronze Age, or sorry, a little more in the Copper Age, when that really started going to Walden Books and graphic novels and trade paperbacks. But this is the start of it. You're absolutely right. My next pick is a series that is not worth anything. You can get a full run of it on eBay for probably about 20, 30 bucks, but it's great reading. And believe it or not, it is Black Hawk by Mark Evanier and Dan Spiegel. Now, I hate war comics. Me too. That's why I'm shocked I liked Black Hawk so much. Black Hawk really was the war comic for people who didn't like war comics. It had a little bit of fantasy in it, but it was really grounded in some reality. And the plotting and the pacing and the characterizations were so spot on. Beautiful art by Dan Spiegel, who is so, so, so underrated as an artist. I didn't get him as a kid. I thought it was very bland. You probably know him, Richard, from drawing Magnus Robot Fighter for Gold Key,
Okay, yeah.
or after Russ Manning. You probably know him from Space Family Robinson. He drew that run. It looks very utilitarian, but
Right.
it really fools you with its simplicity and how good it is. It's kind of like a Jaime Hernandez kind of
I was
thing.
just thinking that. I was just thinking that.
Yeah, where less is more. What's great about Blackhawk is you've got these beautiful covers by Gil Kane and Howard Chaykin, and then Dan Spiegel himself. Dave Cockrum drew a few covers, and then there are little backups where the book was so critically acclaimed and so popular with critics and artists that he had his pick of backup strip art. He had backups by Chaykin, Alex Toth, Don Newton, so many other great artists. And like I said, you guys can get it on the cheap. I think there's only a couple of books that are somewhat pricey, and by price I mean they might be $10 each because they have Hitler on the cover, and they're weirdos that collect Hitler covers. But Blackhawk, you usually find it in the dollar bins. I'm telling you guys, take it from me. You will not regret it if you buy it and read it. It is such a good read.
Any reprints, omnibus, any kind of collections for this?
Never been reprinted, which is a shame and a shock. I believe an omnibus or something was solicited once, then canceled, which is weird because I know the Chaykin series has been reprinted. The post Chaykin series, including the Action Comics Weekly stuff, has been reprinted. But
Uh-huh.
for some reason, I don't think this has ever been reprinted.
Oh,
Uh,
that's a shame.
well, you know, it wasn't a popular book within DC itself because the only reason it existed at that time is Steven Spielberg had said something in an interview that he wanted to make a Black Hawk movie someday. So someone at DC was like, "Whoa, wait, hold on, we got to get a Black Hawk book out there," and they kept it alive a lot longer than it should have been because it was not a big seller. In fact, the editor and the writer Mark Evanier has written in his on his website about how he would send copy for the solicitations every month and no one would ever acknowledge it. And so every month the solicitation for the retailers would say information not available at press time. And he's like, I've sent it every
Mhm.
month. So for his last story, he called the story information not available at press time as an inside joke. So
Uh,
yeah, not a
I,
very well respected book.
no, but I remember the Chaykin covers. They are amazing. I mean, Chaykin just draws. It's the subject matter so fits his art style. So that's what I remember from the series.
I would never tell you guys to go search on the gray market for a digital collection, but if you do, you know, that's on you. Richard, what is your next one?
My next one is an easy one. For independence, there are a number of choices. You know, Love and Rockets is an example of one that is potential, but I picked Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 1 through 4, plus Raphael, which the Micro series, which was a one issue, one shot. Those are all magazine-sized books. They're all on the cheapest kind of newsprint that you can come up with, black and white. But we're talking about comics that changed comic book collecting in the industry. It proved that you could take an independent title and make it into a worldwide phenomenon. In 1987, they released their first line of Teenage Mutant Ninja toys to go along with an animated series that was launching. This went big and it's still going big. Those first 4 books, though, are just, if you've never read them, they are very raw and I don't want to say amateurish, but they
Visceral.
yeah, they have a genuineness that later issues slowly erode as Eastman and Laird kind of pull back from their roles of being the producers of the comic. Um, but it's amazing how you can start with something that was so simple. And I still remember I never had an issue 1 off the newsstand. I had an issue 2 off the newsstand. It's one of my prized comics because I love that thing. It's beat to pieces. Um, but it is such an important comic to me personally because you picked this thing up and it was like nothing else that was on the stand. It was this parody of all these different genres wrapped up into a story that was compelling and interesting and not a parody for parody's sake. And I remember collecting the other issues. I've since gotten a number of copies of issue number 1 to fill in my collection. But like I said, if you haven't had an opportunity to read the first 4 issues, they're excellent. The Raphael is also an excellent book, and I see them. This is another blue chip book. This is all of these books are all books that are going to retain value. They're not making more of them, so over time they're going to go up in value, and we've seen that. The values these things go up and down depending on the news of the properties being used in movies or TV. But I think this is a great book to represent the independent comic.
I think we should talk about 80s indies in general right now. I thought for sure you were either going to pick this or Cerebus. I was
Yeah.
this close to thinking you were going to pick Cerebus.
I didn't think of Cerebus. Cerebus is also an important book. The first couple 200, no, maybe
You're being
150.
you're being generous.
Yeah, Jaka's story is where
Yeah,
I kind of lost me.
yeah.
Um, But no, great. So, Dave Sim and Cerebus is also another awesome independent book. Um, just be prepared to slog your way through the end of the run, is all I can say.
But we had so many great indies. Eclipse had Zot.
Oh,
Uh, you,
yeah.
you had Kamiko or Comico, the Eternal Debate, with Elementals and Grendel. Ginger
Yes.
Fox. I love Ginger Fox.
Mhm.
Am I the only person that ever read Ginger Fox?
I never
Anybody else?
read it. No, sorry.
It was a Millie the Model for the 80s. Um, but yeah, let's give a shout out to those indies because
Absolutely.
a lot of that stuff has just kind of disappeared and it's crumbling slowly in a long box somewhere, never to be reprinted because of rights issues and what
Mhm.
have you. It's sad.
Yeah.
Uh, but when you go to a big show and you get down to that 50-cent bin, give Ginger Fox some love. Uh,
If it's Fantagraphics, pick it up, take a look at it. It's probably cheap. Probably buy it.
Yeah, a lot of the Kamiko stuff too,
Yep.
There
Mhm.
there was crap, Solson, a lot of Eternity Comics stuff, there's crap out there, but there's some gems. There are some diamonds hiding in that bullpucky. All right, my last pick is another just general genre that I think this is where we get into the investing part. If you're gonna look for stuff that you wanna buy on the cheap now and it's gonna blow up, Bronze Age horror. You cannot lose with Bronze Age horror. DC's end of it, you got The Witching Hour with those great covers. The Unexpected, I think, is a book that just gets zero love right now that is prime for people to discover. House of Mystery, not only the anthology stuff with the great Bernie Wrightson covers and Kaluta covers, but you've got I, Vampire, which is going to be a movie
Yeah.
someday. I'm
Oh,
convinced, right?
yeah, absolutely.
I, Vampire was awesome. Weird War Tales, I have a run of Weird War Tales. It's not complete, but it's getting pretty close. I will tell you this from my personal experience. That is a tough book to complete a high grade run because the high grade is scarce and you are competing with other weirdos like me that are driving the prices up. So definitely Weird War Tales and the Bronze Age Marvel horror reprint titles. Your Where Monsters Dwell, Where Creatures Roam, all that stuff. You get them on the cheap and you keep them for a while. You'll be surprised at what high grade copies of those books will fetch, especially if you get them slabbed and they come back 9.4, 9.6s and you throw them up at auction. Wow. So do not sleep on Bronze Age horror titles.
Oh, I agree, and I think we've seen a rise in interest in Bronze Age horror in the past couple of years. There's been a big interest in Dracula, Morbius was a big interest in that, even though the movie apparently wasn't that good. But no, I agree with you. I think Bronze Age horror, there's still a lot of meat on the bone if you're looking to collect. If you find it, frankly, horror in general, it's a good pickup if you find it cheap.
Because I think it has a big normal citizen following, and by that I mean not complete obsessive comic nerds, but like man on the street drive-by fans love that horror stuff. I mean, if you have Vampirella and stuff, you can always sell it. And I think you've got a lot of horror fans out there that will cross over into comics and buy that stuff when they can find it, and it's great. Before we move on, I wanted to share a gift I got over the holidays from Raphael, my husband, and I think everybody here would appreciate this. It is a Wendell Vaughn Quasar figure.
Oh, that is so perfect.
So now I've got the Hercules and I've got the Quasar. I have, of course, he's not hard to find, but I've always had my cap. There's my cap. So kudos to Raphael for finding a friggin' Wendell Vaughn Quasar figure, mint in box.
Props to him because that had to have been hard to track down.
I didn't ask. I think he spent some time tracking that down. So kudos. And because we are in a new year, guess what that means, Richard? For one of our segments,
we tick up 1 year, right?
That's right. This is the 3rd year for the 25-year rule. Year 3, 25-year rule. We're now in 1998. Is that nuts?
That is nuts.
A banner year for comics, for Marvel Comics in particular. And we're going to start off with probably, I think, the most obvious pick for the 25-year rule for 1998. And that is Daredevil Volume 2, number 1. This book, written by Kevin Smith when he felt like it. It was always late. That's why I say that. Drawn by Joe Quesada. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say this might be one of the most important and pivotal comic books ever published by Marvel. Bold statement. Because Marvel was just emerging from bankruptcy. This may have been at the company's lowest point. They had tons of layoffs, nothing sticking. So they went to Joe Quesada and Jimmy Palmiotti, who doesn't get enough credit here, to revitalize some lower selling Marvel titles. They canceled Daredevil. They gave him Black Panther, Daredevil, Punisher, and Inhumans. And they said, what can you do with these titles? So they created a banner called Marvel Knights, and Daredevil number 1 was the first release for Marvel Knights. It was sort of a we got nothing to lose approach. And in Daredevil's case, it was a huge, huge success. Kevin Smith not having just a little to do with that. I mean, that was a filmmaker, a screenwriter coming on, which was a big deal back then. Now it's like, meh, great. Prove you can write a comic, screenwriter. It started a whole chain of events that eventually led to Joe Quesada becoming Marvel's editor-in-chief, then as the chief creative officer for Marvel. From there, they created the Ultimates line with Ultimate Spider-Man, etc. The Marvel Cinematic Universe came out of that. It all started right here with Daredevil Volume 2, number 1. So you're probably thinking, wow, this is such a historically important book. It's got to be $1 million, right? Wrong. The 90-day average for a CGC 9.8 is just $133.
That's surprising.
That did shock me. Maybe because it was heavily ordered. I know that, but heavily ordered in 1998 doesn't really mean, 300,000 copies. If you are on the hunt for something scarcer, there is a newsstand version of this book and a Dynamic Forces variant with a different Joe Quesada cover. So starting off with a bang and for the 25-year rule this year with a big one. It can only go down from here.
That's the spirit.
Right? Well, we are going to alternate between the 25-year rule and the old fart rule. So there is your first 25-year rule for this year. Let's move on to
great pick.
Thank you. Moving on to our underrated books of the week. Richard, what do you got? Speaking of
Uncanny X-Men, specifically issue number 118, which is the first appearance of Marika Yoshida.
Congratulations.
But for what?
You said it.
Oh, I said it. Yeah, I managed to get it out, hopefully without ruining it. She is a long-term love interest for Wolverine. And by long-term, I mean like from early on Wolverine all the way through to Old Man Logan. She has impact. So this is an important character in Wolverine's mythos. She was a member of the Yakuza. She falls in love with Wolverine back when Wolverine was in Japan. She ends up engaged to Wolverine, doesn't end up marrying him. She is later killed, sent to hell.
What?
Satan tells her to torture Wolverine when he goes to hell.
What?
Yeah, don't ask. And then she gets resurrected, becomes the Scarlet Samurai.
Wow.
Later, Old Man Logan, so that's Logan, at the end of his life, leaves in her care a little girl who will in the future will become his wife. Again, don't ask. It's a weird chain that we string together. But the important part is this is an important character to Wolverine. And it's an important character to understand her background and her history. So if you want to understand Wolverine and his love interests, this is somebody you need to know about. There are about 1,700 books on the census for this, for CGC census. Also, there is a rare multi-pack. This is one of the books that was put out in multi-packs. You can tell them because they have a blank UPC label and the price is in a diamond box. There are only 2 copies of this graded on the census, which I find fascinating. So there's an opportunity. I was on eBay earlier. There are 3 or 4 of these multi-pack books up there. People may or may not know what they have. You know, they were going for around $30 to $100 for these books in various conditions. It's priced at a 9.8 right now for the regular cover at about 546. I have no idea what a 9.8 of these multi-packs would go for.
If one exists. I
If one
mean,
exists, yeah, those multi-packs are tough.
I had a mid-grade multi-pack that I sold on a live sale 2 months ago.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I had a Pence version of this that I sold on a live sale.
Awesome.
So I'm your X-Men 118 connection.
It's a good book. You know, we were talking earlier about X-Men and the importance of X-Men. This is one reason why, because a lot of the early, Bronze Age X-Men established a lot of the backstory for the characters that Wolverine and all of the, I'm going to call them new X-Men. So it's important that you understand the Bronze Age so you can understand the motivations for the X-Men today.
Who is responsible for the storyline where she goes to hell and is talking with Satan?
I
Do you have
don't
any idea?
know. I
I
don't.
need to know. I want names, people. I want names. Again, just a fundamental misunderstanding of what this book is and what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Or maybe we've just aged out of it and this is what the book is now. I mean, they have the ability to recreate mutants whenever they feel like it, right?
They do reincarnate. Yeah, that's
Okay, moving on. Sorry. I kid. Not really. My underrated book of the week is talking about Bronze Age superheroes, talking about Bronze Age horror, talking about Bronze Age reprint titles. How about all 3 in one? It is Weird Wonder Tales number 19, the first appearance and origin of Doctor Druid. Wow. Doctor Druid. Now, the Avenger, the worst Avenger ever, often called the worst Avenger ever. He originally appeared as a mystical hero called Doctor Druid in Amazing Adventures number 1 in 1961, which predated Fantastic Four number 1. We have talked about this book and Dr. Druid on this podcast before. You know why they changed the name, Richard, the guy behind you.
That's right.
It didn't make sense to call him Dr. Druid when they brought him back in the 70s. The origin story is insane. He turns Asian as part of the origin story. Well, Weird Wonder Tales number 19 reprints this story, but also it reprints the first appearance of Groot from Tales to Astonish number 13. So it's a twofer here in this Bronze Age horror reprint title. Classic Lee and Kirby on both stories with some help from Larry Lieber on the scripting. A CGC 9.8 of Weird Wonder Tales number 19, last sold in 2015 for $325. And I'm here to tell you, if you have a 9.8 of this book and you want to sell it to me for $325, please email us at bronzeandmoderngods@gmail.com. In the subject line, put, I don't know what my books are worth, and I will buy it from you that day.
Yeah, the fact that it's last time it sold was 2015 is a good indication of the rarity of this book.
Or just doofuses like me are the only ones that want it. I do have an Amazing Adventures number 1, First Doctor Druid, and I do have a copy of Weird Wonder Tales 19, First Doctor Druid. It is not a 9.8.
Druid? I mean, really? You couldn't just you passed over Doom and went to Druid.
Went right to Druid.
Okay.
Rhymes with broom. Droom, broom, groom. We'll see you soon. This is the end. Thanks, everybody. Richard, remind everybody where they can find us.
They can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Bronze and Modern Gods or the website bronzeandmoderngods.com.
And if you like this video, tell a friend, please. We're so close to 5,000. It'd be great to get there this month, and we appreciate each and every one of you. We'll see you next time.
Yep. Everybody, stay safe.